I don't profess to be an expert in anything at a deep level, but I know lots and lots and lots of little things that need to get done, and therefore I'm quite useful resource to have to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? These are the potential solutions you've got. Let's build that solution together. And that's going back to that teamwork. How do you make sure you plug the right people into the right other people to make sure that they are building those plans appropriately?
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Helping People Perform. Can't wait for this week's episode. I'm joined by a really good friend of mine, someone who I've known for coming on 25 years it's going to be. So it's been a while, and it's been a pleasure all the way through. Today I'm joined by owner and managing director at Peak 15 Advisory Services. Welcome to the show today, Tom Cliff.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for the intro. Great to be here. Yeah, 25 years. I'm really looking forward to this. Shall we just dive straight in?
Let's do it, mate. So what I like to do at the start of all my episodes is get people to give us a bit of background to yourself, what's got you to where you are today, and then we'll delve into a bit more about what you do today. But tell us a bit about your background and what got you to where you are in this present moment.
Yeah, no problem. So I mean, most people that know me know I went to uni in Durham and I did a chemistry degree. Never really felt cut out for the chemistry part of it, and I had no idea what I really wanted to do. So I took a role in management consulting. I thought I'd go and see the world, see lots of different industries, and finally find what I enjoyed. And what happened was I ended up working in the post-merger element of mergers and acquisitions, so actually helping people put companies together or conversely take them apart and separate them out. And having fallen into that, I found I really enjoyed it. So I did a few years with Deloitte where I trained up. I then went and worked in an organizational development consultancy focused on the people elements around change.
Right.
I then moved to Grant Thornton where I was there for 8 years, and I led the post-deal operations part of the Grant Thornton's business consulting team for 8 years in the north of England. And then I decided to take some time out. I realized that the partner track wasn't quite what I wanted to do. I really enjoy getting my sleeves rolled up, and I enjoy getting stuck into the detail.
Yeah.
So I decided I'd go out and start up on my own and offer these services under my own banner. So I started that in 2019, and I've been doing that ever since and thoroughly enjoying it.
Fantastic. And interesting one there, because I've got so many people on the show from different backgrounds and different technical training, so to speak. I'm an engineer by trade. I'll always say I'm the world's worst engineer, but I've brought a lot of the learnings from engineering into what I do today. So is there anything that sticks out from those chemistry days as to something that's helped you or hindered you in throughout your career?
First, I would challenge that you are not the worst engineer in the world. I know you, and you're a pretty mean engineer. I think in terms of what I bring from that university chemistry time. Look, university teaches you to learn an incredible amount of different things in an incredibly short space of time to a very detailed level. Yeah. And I think going into any sort of consulting advisory style role, that ability to walk in and pick up things really quickly is really important. I think the one thing that probably stands out from the chemistry side of it was some of the lab work, some of the practical work.
Right.
As you get further into a chemistry degree, the lab work becomes harder, it becomes more complicated. The things you're trying to create and analyze become much more complex, and you tend to work more as a team.
Right.
And when you're in those labs, you're not just working on your own at your workstation, you're working with a group of people who might be your friends, you might be in a team. And that stuck with me. I think the ability to gel people together, to help them work towards a common goal. And whilst it might not often always be obvious, I think that's a really important part of what I learned during my degree that I've continued to be able to apply through my career.
Right. Oh, wonderful! Yeah, there's always some great learnings you can take that sort of snake their way throughout and keep the threads going, and I think
Mm.
that's a really important one. And um, one other thing that I know about you, amongst many, and we'll keep a lot of them off this podcast, but
I'd appreciate that.
I know that you've kept in touch with the university and you've done a lot of work for the university in Grey College, where we were both at
Yep.
throughout the years as well. Tell us a bit about what got you back involved once you'd left university, and why that's been important to you.
So yeah, I mean, up till about 2016, where I just sort of completely ran out of time and realised it wasn't fair on either party that I was trying to juggle that. I think what I took was the sheer enjoyment of the time I had when I was there,
Mm,
and the fact that it gave me so many opportunities. I met so many great people, not just the friends that I still have today, but also, some of the academics, some of the other people who were around the college at the time. And I wanted to continue to make sure that the people who were going through the college at the time continue to have that level of enjoyment and experience. So I helped to set up um, the college's business angel scheme, not
right.
business angels in an entrepreneurial way, but more people who had graduated who could give advice, honest, real advice to students about what the sorts of careers they were going to have.
Mm,
And that manifested in a website, which matured as we got hundreds and hundreds of business angels, just people answering a short form questionnaire, which would then be posted and categorized under the sort of career, but also putting together careers day to
right.
help people understand what it meant to apply for a job, how to stand out on an application form, how to go through their um, interview process, and then what it would be like when they actually landed in said job of their choice.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed doing that. But like I say, when we got to sort of 2016, I was well progressed in my career. I was running around the country like a headless chicken. I decided that it was time for me to step back from that.
Right.
And whilst I'm still in touch with the college and I support them very much, I do tend to take a bit of a proper alumni role now and go back for a bit of fun and games every now and again. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, let someone else take the reins.
No, I think that's wonderful, and I think being able to give back and finding a way to give back to those institutions that have given you so much, and particularly on reflection, coming out,
Mm.
I think it's something that we can all take a lesson from, and think about how we can help and what we can do, and even if it's just connecting people, having those real conversations, putting yourself back in those shoes as to when you're in that position, what would you have found valuable? And I think that's something I applaud you for, mate. And I know you've put a lot of hard work in over the years, but and continue to support in your own different ways as well, which is brilliant. Um,
Been lots of fun.
yeah. So tell us a bit then about Peak 15, and you talk about sort of post mergers and acquisitions and things like that. What is it that you do, and what are the clients that you that you're working with? How do you help them?
Yeah, that's a great question. What is it I do? Some people I've known for many, many years, and they still have no idea what I do, even if I've articulated it a number of times. What I do fundamentally is I help people as they are going either through an acquisition or a divestment, and I help them think through the practical considerations that they need to undertake to either make that acquisition successful or that divestment happen.
Right.
Um, I'm not a corporate finance person. I'm not a banking person. I am not an IT specialist in any way, shape, or form. But what I have is a lot of experience around all the things you need to consider to make a transaction successful operationally.
Right.
And I will go in and I will work with the management team and I will help them first define what is it exactly they're buying, what exactly is it they're selling,
Right.
what are the key activities they need to undertake ahead of day one, the day when the transaction actually completes, primarily to make sure that the business is legally safe and able to continue operating on day one. I talk
Right.
a lot about making sure that goods still arrives at the back door, products still go out to customers,
Yeah.
calls get handled, website works, all the things that you need to do, thinking really down into that detailed level. And then after that, with the separations, helping people actually separate properly and fully, completely, and project and program managing that. And then with the integration, actually bringing the businesses together. What are the things that we really need to make sure we integrate? And that might be to achieve economies of scale, or it might be just to very practically extract the value out of the businesses that the business that was purchased. So no one is ever the same.
Right.
For a lot of people, they are one-off events in their career. Sometimes you'll meet people who've been through a couple. I don't profess to be an expert in anything at a deep level, but I know lots and lots and lots of little things that need to get done, and therefore I'm quite useful resource to have to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? These are the potential solutions you've got. Let's build that solution together. And that's going back to that teamwork. How do you make sure you plug the right people into the right other people to make sure that they are building those plans appropriately?
Right. Oh, wonderful. And I know, you know, having worked in businesses where parts of that business or even the whole of that business has either been sold or bought by another business,
Yeah.
until you get into the nitty gritty, it just feels as if, you know, all right, it's sold, you know, the deal's done, that's it. You now own that business. That part of the business is now somewhere else. It's never that simple. And I know when we were chatting the other day, you talked about some of the nuanced detail of that. Like, do you still have access to the IT systems, and you know all of that detail that needs to happen, as you say, to keep the cogs moving. Have you got any good stories, any examples of things that have?
So examples. I mean, I think more for your listeners, it's about just considering the pitfalls as you go. M&A happens quickly. It happens at a pace that normal internal transformation and change programs that don't take place at. And to accelerate that, as you rightly say, sometimes what is put in place is what's called a transitional service arrangement, and that will allow the seller to continue to provide the buyer with access to some of their systems, some of their business processes, some of their contracts potentially,
Right.
to allow them to sell the business and then use a runoff period to come off that. And whether you are a seller, understanding how that's going to work practically and how you're going to provide that and how you're going to arrange for that to happen and how you are going to track and monitor that a buyer is actually exiting that is one thing. And then on the flip side, if you are in the buyer's situation, you've got to think, what am I getting under transitional service? How long am I getting it for? What exactly am I buying? How much am I paying for it? And even from very early stage, you've got to be thinking, what do I need to stand up? What do I need to move onto my systems? What do I need to make sure happens in that time frame to exit that transitional service? Because often there are quite punitive clauses in the sale documents for if you don't get off there.
Yeah.
The price goes up, the service level goes down, etc., etc.
Right. And it's one of the things when I was thinking about this the other day, I'm almost likening it in my own head to like a house buy, where it's a big thing that happens in people's life, only as you say, sort of once or twice it might be for some people. And knowing that, you know, I know that I want to buy a house. I know that I've got so much money to put down as a deposit. But I don't know, you know, it's like, do I go in and just give someone that money? How does that work? What paperwork do I need? What do I need to do now to ensure that later on runs smoothly? You know, what are those nuances and those things? And that's why you go to an estate agent. That's why you have a lawyer to help you. And this seems like to be an analogy that fits in my mind, that you're helping people through that process and bringing the experience that they won't have had necessarily in that
Yeah,
place.
absolutely. For a lot of people, it is quite a unique moment in their career. You have to balance delivering the M&A program with running the day-to-day business. And if you're not a huge business, you can find that very quickly your people will become distracted. They get what I call shiny new toy syndrome. You know, they've got this new shiny acquisition. They want to go and get involved and they want to devote their runtime to that, where actually there are certain people who actually you need to stay focused on making the sales that they always make, delivering
Yeah.
the products, the quality that they always deliver,
Mm.
delivering aftercare and service. And only when they are asked specifically to focus on something should they be distracted, and helping people think through where they're going to get those additional resources from, where they're going to leverage advisors, consultants, secondees, whatever it may be to help them.
Mm.
Or is it something they can manage internally because they actually have some resource capability,
Right.
either from their own organisation or maybe from the acquired organisation as well. And
Right.
don't forget, people are very seldom just just buying an organisation; they're buying the people, the knowledge, the know-how, and understanding how you leverage that early and where you want to leverage that is really, really important.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, because I think it's one of those areas where, as you say, it's either a shiny new toy or it's something that can be very disruptive to an organisation, particularly at the smaller end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, going back to your days in the likes of Deloitte, it's the bigger businesses that are buying whole businesses or massive arms of those businesses that they need a team like Deloitte to come in and manage that whole end to end operation. Um, are you dealing more that sort of small to medium end of the spectrum, and what's the service that you provide? Is it just the overall management, or do you get your hands dirty still?
So look, there are mega deals out there. We read about them. They happen on a regular basis. Billions and billions worth of transactions. It's not uncommon these days. They are happening in many jurisdictions across the world. They are multi faceted in many ways. They have lots of nuances depending on where they are, and they need large teams. Most of the big four, most of the second tier firms, and also some boutique consultancies will offer that
Right.
merger integration service. And a lot of it is around personal preference. Sometimes people want that level of oversight, that large team. I grew up in that. I think it's very useful, very helpful. It does allow a lot of things to be executed at pace, and I still work with some of the larger organizations and support them. And I'm very grateful for the training they've given me. I think what I've found is that some organizations don't particularly need, when they're doing smaller transactions, so it might not necessarily be a small organization, but they are not necessarily doing mega deals.
Yeah.
They need a smaller team who they can look at to go through an organization from the strategic top level vision, rationale, detail,
Yeah.
through into the detail, sorry, into that sort of how do you plan this out, how do you run it, and then actually people who can go and support their teams in actually managing it and driving it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And where I've found my niche is because, as I said in my introduction, I do like to get my hands dirty. I do like to do a lot of doing. I do like the detail. I found that for some of those smaller transactions, I'm able to pick up a multitude of those roles where otherwise you might have to go and purchase a number of different consultants from a large organization. But as I said, it's completely horses for courses. Some people like to have that continuity from their diligence team right through into their post-acquisition. Some people want to have a smaller, leaner, more nimble advisor around them. And some people want a mix. I've worked on some transactions where I'm sort of sitting close to the management team, and then there are advisors sitting around. And I think once everybody realizes that there's a piece of pie for them and that there's a way they can help and drive a transaction through and make the client successful, it works really well. So it's all different depending on who you talk to and what people particularly want.
Right. So you're working there with the leadership teams, with the C-suite or the senior team, to say, what is it you want? This, I can help you at a top level. I can help advise how you move this and point you towards the pitfalls. But it
Yeah.
sounds like you're also there to go, if you need me to deliver some of this stuff and to make it happen. And as I think you pointed out earlier on, you're not the IT expert, you're not the finance person who
Mm.
does it, but you can project manage that and program manage that so that it gets done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Build the plan, identify the interdependencies, do some of
right.
that really good, what some people would describe the basic project management stuff. And
Mm,
it's fine, it's applying that 80-20 rule in a lot
mm,
of cases. You can, if you want to implement a large IT system, you can spend a year planning it before you even, get off the ground.
yeah,
For some of these M&A situations, you have to move really, really quickly, and
right.
being able to apply that 80-20 rule, what are the big things we need to get done, and we need to get them done now? What are the things we need to mock up later?
Yeah.
Um, is slightly different
Mm,
to let's plan it to the nth degree, and only when we're happy that every little bit of the jigsaw fits together do we move forward. Sometimes you've got to start the ball rolling,
right. Yeah.
and a lot of it's about taking the people on the journey.
Yeah.
People have to get comfortable that it won't be perfect every time.
Mm,
You'll get 80% of it right,
yeah.
90% of it right, but sometimes you're just going to have to say, okay, we went that direction, the goalposts have moved, we've got to make a change.
Right.
And being able to articulate to people and bring people on a journey around how that helps, how that happens, is really, really helpful.
Mm. No, wonderful. And again, some people like to have the change managed for them, and some people like to learn from that experience so that if they have to do it again in future, they can build that capability for themselves as well, isn't it? And
Yeah.
see how they could do it in either again in that organization, or if they move forward in their career, they can take that experience. Oh, wonderful. Oh, I think it's definitely one of those areas in business that people overlook. Partly because it doesn't happen very often in a business's life cycle, but
Yeah.
also it's something that, particularly from my experience in some of the smaller businesses that I've worked with in particular, where they've said, right, oh, we're going to buy in this competitor, and they're
Mm.
only small, and we're going to bring them in, and the noise that has come around that has been so sort of dangerous to their own operation. Never mind the wider operation once they're integrated. It's actually impacted their existing organisation to an extent where they weren't getting the performance they needed. So I think that's a
And
great way.
that's you make a really good point there, Paul.
Mm,
A lot of people will look at buying businesses where an owner necessarily wants to cash out and retire,
right.
or they want to move on from that to another exciting venture they've got in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
Um, but if you are a large corporate or a medium-sized corporate buying an owner-managed business,
Mm,
that is actually one of the more challenging
right.
types of acquisition you can do, because one, that owner probably wants to walk away at some point. So you've
Yep.
got to work out how do you extract that knowledge, either by some sort of earn out to keep them in the business for a period of time, or some mechanism like that.
Yep.
They are used to making very quick, very nimble decisions,
Mm,
and the people are normally bought into their
right.
vision and leadership. I once went to meet with a large multinational who was having problems. They were buying little technology businesses, and most of their most of their acquisitions were not going particularly well because they were not putting any change management consideration to how do you move from a very, very nimble, small organization
Right.
where you go into someone's office or you pick the phone to someone, the decision gets made,
Yeah.
to filling in forms in triplicate for a board meeting that happens in a month's time, and then it takes a week to get back to you
Right.
to make that decision. And I think one of my favorite examples of that was I worked in a joint venture,
Right.
and we were trying to sign off the joint venture board papers. And one side was a huge multinational, one of the world's biggest firms, and the other was a family-run business in the UK.
Right.
And 2 months before the board meeting, the papers had to be submitted in first draft.
Right.
And no one in the family business could work out why this was, because they were just going to get together one night around at the owner's, their father's house,
Yeah.
have a chat, make the decision, sign off the paperwork, and off they go. Whereas this one had to, go through a UK approval and then a US
Right.
approval and so on and so forth. And just that whole concept of
Yeah.
pace and change, certainly something that people need to consider when they go into these things.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the practicalities that impact you on a day to day.
Mm,
Oh, wonderful! I think there's a it's a great service to be offering people, and a great experience set that can help people in so many different ways. So,
yeah.
one of the questions I also like to ask all my guests is about how you help your own performance. How
Okay.
what do you do to make sure that you're operating at your best and keeping up to speed with best practices and things like that?
Well, I think there are sort of two ways to come at that. One is maintaining your work-life balance, maintaining the headspace,
Mm,
making sure you have time away from being in the detail to think, are we going in the right direction? Am I advising in the right way? And um, keeping that fresh. And I think one of the things I do there is, I work with lots of different individuals, directly or indirectly, and you understand how the general approach to what I do is changing, how the approach to integration is moving along, or separation is moving along, and what the key topics are in the market as people are doing that. And that's one thing I do. I make sure that at least once a week I just have some time away from the computer, and whether that's going out and playing golf, or whether that's just going and having a bit of a walk and just sort of going, am I getting this right at the moment? What's going there? And then the other thing is, I'm very privileged, and can't do this, but I've got some great mates, both from university, from the career I've had, from the clients I've worked with, and not just now on my own, but through my whole career.
mm,
And many of them I'm still in touch with, and sometimes just going and having a sit down with a beer with them, and just bit of social, bit of work chat.
yeah.
It's useful to get their insights as well, and that helps me with 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 maintaining my performance, but also learning more about what I'm doing in the industry and the challenges that people are facing.
Mm.
I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to that question. It's very different for every individual, and what they personally like. But that's sort of how I do it, and
Yeah. No, it's
try and maintain my enthusiasm and my energy.
and I think that's the key bit for me is like what is it that gives you energy, and I think if you can recognize that in yourself, so like I get have people who get lots of energy from the coaching conversations they have, and very
Mm.
structured coaching. I have people who exercise is their key thing.
Yeah,
I've had people who like to challenge themselves with things like ice baths, and that's something
yeah,
that brings them back in, or golf, or mates, or
yeah.
whatever it might be. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there, which is what's the thing that gives you the energy and gives you the focus back
Mm.
to not only be able to do what you're doing, but to want to do what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
If you've got that drive to want to do it, then you're going to make it happen.
Absolutely. I don't know why I chuckled when you mentioned ice baths, because actually one of the most talented individuals I've worked with for many years was into the Wim Hof technique way before he became a TV personality, and he
Right,
absolutely swears by the cold shower. So I
right.
think not sure what made me chuckle there, but yeah, you've got to find what works for you, and you've got to create the time and the space for it.
Yeah, brilliant. Great words of wisdom there, sir. So, if you were able to help any individual or team or organization, or a type of organization or a type of team with the skill set that you've got, who would you want that to be?
Oh, it's a killer question, that one, Paul. Look, I'm very, very lucky that the type of work I do allows me to go and work across a variety of industries with lots and lots of different teams. I've worked with some of the world's largest organizations, down to mom and pop businesses with people wanting to cash out and retire.
Yeah.
Um, I've worked in industries that people don't even consider. One of my favorite jobs that I did was a set up a joint venture in the airline catering industry about 10 years ago.
Right.
I don't think anyone really considers how that little tray of food on a long haul flight gets to them, and
No.
that it is actually one of the perfect storms of manufacturing and logistics coming together.
Oh yeah.
You don't know who's getting on the plane until about 8 hours before it takes off,
Yeah.
and you've got to make, particularly for business and first class customers, you've got to make really, really high quality food and get it to a plane on time.
Yeah.
because the plane ain't waiting for the food. And that was very, very interesting. But yeah, a bit of an eye opener when you think about industries that you haven't thought of. So there's no any one or any organization. I like people who like working with me, and a lot about the advisory work we do is it's about fit,
Yeah.
and ultimately sometimes I'll meet people and we just gel and a great piece of work comes from that. And sometimes we meet people and the fit's not quite there and they might choose someone else, or they might choose to go it alone. And that's fine with me as well.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So let's flip that on its head a little bit then. If you were able to sit down and have a beer, I know you like a home brew and a good craft ale. Who would you want that to be so that you can learn from them and really up your game?
Again, I don't want to give you a cliched answer, but a lot of it for me is around sitting down with some of my mates. They give me some of the best inspiration. They're the people that give you the honest feedback.
Yeah.
When you sit down and you have a beer with someone who you know really well and you trust implicitly,
yeah,
you can talk to them about what you're up to, what you're doing, where your business is going, and they will give you some really honest feedback. And that always helps you just to sit down and go, really? Am I really doing that? Do I really need to consider that? And I think that's probably the most important thing for me. There are inspirational people who I meet in my industry and my career, where they be people who are undergoing or taking on very, very complex change programs. And sometimes you get to meet them, sometimes you don't. I've been very lucky with some of the work I've done for Network Rail to meet people who are generally very, very interesting, looking after complex sets of assets that I couldn't consider how you maintain and look after those assets. And at the same time, I've met people from all over the world running different change programs, and I just enjoy catching up with them every now and again and gaining inspiration from where their careers have taken them.
Right.
Most people who get into a successful change program or a successful M&A program, they go on to do other things and normally better things, and they face new challenges along the way. So it's
I love that, and I think one of the bits I really love from that is yes, you can sit down with the inspirational people, and I think that has a lot of value. But I love that reflection on the people who will tell you warts and all, and the people who will go, yes, this is a shiny thing, this is where I've got to, or this is where you could get to, but by the way, it's going to take all this, and this is the pain you'll feel, and this is because then you can really go, right. And I remember having this conversation, I think with you and some others in one of our networks recently, is it's like, it's not what you want, it's what you're willing to work for.
Yeah.
And so ask yourself that question, is it what I want, or is it what I'm willing to work for? Because if I'm willing to work for it, I'll enjoy the work, and therefore if I get the outcome or not, I'll enjoy the journey. But I think also just taking on that element of, yes, this is actually important to me, this is worth the effort. So I love that, mate. And
I think that's really important. That's been sitting with me for a few weeks now. That what are you willing to work for?
Yeah.
I think that's a really important one, and everyone should consider that, where they're out on their own or where they're in a larger organisation, be it a corporate advisory firm. I think they've got to do that. And for me, I had a bit of a wake up probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I realised that the course I was on probably wasn't what I wanted to be doing for the next 15 years of my life, and it made me then go out and seek some of that, those conversations, and have those conversations to work out the next step. So,
brilliant. So if people want to learn more and want to find out more about what you do and get in contact, how do they do that?
So look, I've got the website. It's up there. www.peakxv. No, we'll have to edit that bit more.
Okay.
So I've got the website up there. It's www.thepeakxv.co.uk.
Yeah.
It's got some information on the services I offer.
Right.
I'm there on LinkedIn. I'm not a huge social media person, but if people send me a message, I do try and get back to them eventually. And then the best way to find out is normally just to meet up. Like I say, let's have a conversation, see if there's a fit, see if I understand the change problem you're going through, and can I help you in whatever context that may be, whether it's a one-off or an occasional conversation to think through the direction and the strategy, or is it actually something more where you need a bit more hands-on support, and we just have to work out how that could happen at some point in the future.
Brilliant. And I'll make sure those websites and all those contact details are in the show notes. As always, I do encourage people to get in touch. I mean, get in touch with Tom, have that conversation. You never know where that conversation is going to go. It might be that you've completely underestimated what's in front of you. It might be that it just gives you the confidence to go off and do it yourself. But ultimately, it's the conversation before you start going down that road that really helps, isn't it?
And it's and I think the other thing is, it's such a time sensitive thing. What I tend to do, we talked about it being a once or twice in a career moment. It might be that right now that's not something that somebody needs, but bookmark it for that time in 5 years' time when suddenly you're part of a divestment or part of an acquisition program, and you go, oh yes, I remember that.
Well, if I'm ever in that situation myself, mate, you'll be the first person I'll be calling up.
Cheers, man.
And so in the meantime, we'll catch up soon for that beer, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thanks so much for being on the show this week, Tom Cliff.
No, thank you very much, Paul. Cheers.
See you soon. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.